Now, the authorities in Antigua and Barbuda have indicated they're willing to help Britain detain two yachts believed to be owned by the sanctioned oligarch Roman Abramovich. Channel 4 News has obtained exclusive footage of the vessels docked in the country's English harbour. But Abramovich is not sanctioned in the Caribbean nation, meaning seizing them could prove complicated. It looks like the perfect place to drop anchor. The Caribbean island of Antigua is, for now, providing a safe haven for luxury yachts linked to a sanctioned Russian oligarch. The two yachts, Halo and Gasson, are registered to a firm in the British Virgin Islands, but the beneficial owner is reportedly Roman Abramovich. The UK has targeted him with sanctions and now wants Antigua's help to enforce them.
The official format now is for the UK to submit what's called a mutual legal assistance treaty request. That will pave the way for legal action to be initiated on this end through the court system, and then ultimately I believe the vessels could be seized.
It may not be that simple though, as Abramovich is not sanctioned in Antigua.
The oligarchs have got very deep pockets and very clever accountants and lawyers who have made sure that it's pretty difficult to chase them down, and that's why again, I say, some of us have been saying for a very long time, you need to have a structure in place long before you have a crisis moment such as this.
Abramovich has managed to escape US sanctions, reportedly because of his role as an unofficial peace envoy between Russia and Ukraine.
I suspect, and I have no more than that suspicion, that the fact that he ended up being sanctioned in the UK was one of the things that propelled him into wanting to do a bit more in relation to Ukraine. But I have never yet heard him condemn the war in Ukraine or the war crimes that we're seeing day in, day out.
Russian oligarchs have moved their super yachts across the world to escape sanctions, but several have had their assets frozen.
We have held this ship.
Just days ago, Britain's Transport Secretary posed in front of a vessel detained in Canary Wharf, a £38 million yacht owned by a Russian mobile phone tycoon. And today he prevented the use of another private jet linked to oligarchs.
At the heart of the Caribbean,
Antigua and other Caribbean island states have been vocal in their opposition to Russian aggression. But are they prepared to take some of the wind out of their economy's sails?
We regularly get some of the largest and most lavish vessels here. A lot of those would be owned by Russian oligarchs. Traditionally, our passport sales have gone to Russians. I mean, for sure, they definitely are one of the major players here.
Abramovich has in the past played down his links to Vladimir Putin. He's also denied directly owning the two Antigua yachts. Western authorities appear in little doubt. But the azure waters of the Caribbean may not give up their secrets so easily. Well, with me here is Tom Keating, who's a financial crime and security specialist at the Royal United Services Institute. Tom, do you think the UK might face an uphill battle trying to detain these two yachts in Antigua, given that Abramovich isn't sanctioned there?
Sanctions are easier said than done. So first you have to prove that the assets, in this case the yachts, are actually owned by him. It looks as though that has been achieved. The question now is, of course, what do Antigua do? Because they are in the crosshairs here. They don't have sanctions. It sounds as though they're going to follow US and UK sanctions. So maybe, yes, those assets will be detained in Antigua for the time being.
But do you think oligarchs like Abramovich are slightly protected by the complicated ownership structure of, yachts, houses and so on?
But these individuals tend not to own big, expensive assets like houses and yachts in their own name because they don't want people to know that they own them, precisely because when sanctions come along, and they will have been preparing for this for months, if not years, it makes it very difficult for us to identify what they actually own. So, yes, we can say that Roman Abramovich is sanctioned, but what precisely does that relate to, other than Chelsea Football Club, which, of course, everybody knows very well?
Yeah. And, reportedly, Ukraine asked the US not to sanction him. He's not sanctioned in Antigua, but also not in the US, reportedly because they wanted him to act as this kind of peace envoy. Do you think that might tempt the UK to sort of go a bit easy on his assets as well?
I think it's unlikely the UK will go easy. I mean, the Foreign Secretary has made a very great thing about the number of oligarchs and others that the UK are sanctioning. So I think she will certainly resist any attempt to be light on him. So I think we can expect the UK to go hard. But yes, I mean, the US, in a way, is a bit of an escape valve here. As we see in other situations, obviously, there's a lot of cooperation across the Atlantic on sanctions, and we see some differences in the approaches being taken by different countries, and there are clearly very good reasons for that, and this might be one of them.
And you've been calling for years for sanctions of the sort that we're now seeing. And you've got Grant Shapps, the Transport Secretary, standing in front of a yacht in Canary Wharf and so on. Is the UK, are you sort of impressed that they are now being quite robust on sanctioning individuals?
So the UK has kind of pursued a policy of benign neglect when it comes to Russian money for 2 decades. Now, they simply couldn't ignore this situation. War on the border of Europe has led to the UK having to act. But let's be very clear, what's happening here is the freezing of assets. We're not seizing them. We're not rolling up illicit finance, which is in the UK. And that's something the government will have to get to grips with once this crisis has abated.
Well, because we can't seize the assets because they still belong to these people.
Absolutely. I mean, these houses and these yachts belong to these individuals. We can't expropriate them. You know, we're not a dictatorship in the UK. So we have to be very careful to make sure that we differentiate between a criminal process where we take the assets of people because they are the proceeds of crime and simply freezing them because we are currently at war. The West is at financial war, at any rate, with Russia.
So what happens to those frozen assets, those yachts, those houses around the world?
We have to look after them. I mean, this is the incredible thing. The asset management of frozen assets is, if you like, a big industry, and they will remain tied up alongside docks. The houses will remain there in Belgravia. And, of course, they can still be occupied. If individuals want to live in them, if individuals want to enter these yachts, they can.
The individuals sanctioned?
Correct. They can. But they can't sail them away. They can't fly their planes away. And, of course, they can't sell the houses and monetize them and take the proceeds.
Although they might already have sold a few of them before. But, I mean, that could get quite costly, couldn't it, maintaining these assets?
It could potentially get very costly. I mean, I think what we see here, this whole saga around yachts, makes one thing very clear, which is it's very easy to sanction individuals. Eventually, it's easy, at any rate, to sanction them. But what happens thereafter is extremely complicated, and I don't think we thought that through.
Do you think the oligarch sanctions are actually hurting Putin?
No, I don't believe that at all. I think the oligarch sanctions are helpful because they put the whole issue of sanctions into the public eye. People know the Chelsea Football Club is subject to sanctions because it's owned by Roman Abramovich. That's helpful from a PR perspective, but it doesn't seem to me that this is going to change Vladimir Putin's calculus.
Tom Keating, thanks very much for joining us.